happy Friday. We've been telling you for a few days we were going to have the new governor in studio, and here she is. Ladies and gentlemen, the new governor of the great state of Arizona, Katie Hobbs, joins us. Governor Hobbs, how are you? Welcome to the studios of the Gaydos and Chad show. It's nice to have you here.
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
All right. So, we just met. We've talked on the phone a lot. Yep. We've interviewed you before, but we've never met you in person. So it's interesting because we don't know
How impressive are we?
Already, right out of the gate.
I'm blown away.
Yeah, not too impressive, right, Governor? We don't know each other. And when I see you, I see someone who's always very polite, very calm, and soft-spoken at times. And I'm wondering what ticks you off. I'm wondering, is there maybe behind closed doors a shrewd side of Katie Hobbs, a tenacious side, someone who's going to talk to the Republicans maybe a little bit differently than what we hear in front of a microphone?
Oh, absolutely. I think people tend to underestimate me. That might come from my soft-spoken nature, as you mentioned. But I certainly can tough it out. I faced a lot of things as the Secretary of State, the election denial, and we persevered and continue to stand up for the voters of the state of Arizona. And so, I think folks will be surprised.
So here you are, your first couple weeks into this thing. It's been a whirlwind. What has caught you by surprise so far?
There's a lot that we have to fix in the state, and I knew what we were getting into when we got here, but just it comes at you fast, and there's a lot to deal with every single day. So I think figuring out how to balance, the day-to-day and what comes at you every day versus the long-term goals and what we know we need to work on to help fix the state and make it an Arizona for everyone, as I talked about in the inaugural.
Governor Katie Hobbs joining us in studio. So your State of the State speech, you had some Republicans walk out. Mm-hmm. There were 3 that walked out. There were a couple that turned their back to you. You were up there. Do you notice it?
The teleprompter was honestly in the way, and I was focused on making sure that Arizonans were getting the message that I'm ready to work with anyone. I think that's the message they sent us in the election, that they want folks who are going to put the partisan politics aside and get to work on these tough issues we're facing. I'm still optimistic that we're going to be able to do that.
But you didn't see it. You didn't see them walk out.
I mean, I was anticipating something like that, yes.
Okay, so now that you know they walked out, how does it make you feel that they walked out on your first speech?
I think that it says more about them than it does about me, and I think it's honestly more of an issue for Republican leadership in both chambers than it is for my administration. We're going to move forward, continue focusing on the issues we need to address, and focusing on how we work together to find solutions.
Governor Katie Hobbs joins us in studio. The Republicans, you've got to have some friends over there that you can work with, but the reality is there's some people over there that they don't want to work with anybody with a D by name, especially somebody like you. How are you going to be able to put some stuff together? You rolled out your budget. They want to piecemeal some stuff together. We got a lot of stuff, so we got to get to. How are you going to work with them?
Well, again, the issues we're facing as a state, many of them are urgent. There are things I talked to Arizonans about on the campaign trail, investing in public education, fixing our water crisis, addressing the housing crisis we're in. These are not Republican or Democratic issues, and these are issues that voters demanded that we work on, and we have to come together and find common ground. I have had encouraging meetings with Republican leadership. They acknowledged the fact that we need to find common ground, so I continue to be optimistic.
Governor Katie Hobbs is joining us in studios. We got a couple segments with her today. Let's talk education. Ducey gave teachers a raise. They all showed up on his lawn, and that's pretty much why that happened, and they forced his hand. What's going to happen with you? Are you going to give teachers a raise? Your budget is coming out sometime today. We've got underpaid teachers. We've got classrooms that are too big. And we've got teachers that are leaving the profession in droves. How do you fix that?
Well, one of the things I announced in the State of the State address is that we'll be creating a teacher retention task force. Pay is certainly one of the issues that teachers are facing, but there's a lot of other conditions that are driving them out. And, we don't have a teacher shortage crisis. We have a retention crisis, and we need to get to the bottom of what is causing this.
What does that mean, though? Because if we have 2,500 classes that are empty, isn't that a teacher shortage?
I mean, there are plenty of teachers. They're choosing to leave. The low pay, the crowded classrooms, the unfunded mandates, the onerous requirements that are being put on them are robbing them of the joy of teaching. And we need to find out how we address that, reverse it, and keep teachers in the classrooms.
Is there a specific plan to pay teachers in your first year?
We have, my budget will significantly invest in public education, and you'll see, and I touched on this in the State of the State, the ESA expansion, which has the potential to bankrupt our state. We need to address that, and that will invest more money back into public classrooms and teachers.
How are you going to work with Tom Horn? We've had him on early on when he was running, and he is.
I'm not a fan.
He is not. Gaydos is not a fan. There's a lot of reasons I think people are not a fan. But how are you going to work with him? Because you guys are polar opposites and everything.
Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tom Horn. Yeah.
Yeah, he reached out during the transition. We had a good conversation. He is very interested in finding areas of common ground, and I think for the benefit of our teachers and students, we have to do that. I was a little taken aback by his priorities laid out in his inaugural address. So we'll see.
Which one? Which specific thing did made you? Oh, what's that?
Well, I mean, he's completely focused on discipline. And I think
it's important.
It is important. I think his focus on that really kind of puts him out of touch with what I'm hearing from teachers and parents and students that they need in their classrooms.
Because it sounded to us like he wanted to bring back corporal
punishment and stuff like that. I don't know if it was that, but he definitely felt like it was discipline. But I've heard from teachers that say since COVID in particular, kids, especially younger kids, it's been a real struggle with discipline in the classrooms.
Yeah, and we need to support teachers to be able to have that classroom management. I don't know that Tom Horn's answers are the right answers.
Arizona's new governor, Katie Hobbs. We've gone over her State of the State speech. We've gone over some education, Chad. Let's do homelessness. Let's do the border. Let's start with the border. Chad, you want to start with the border?
Let's start with the border, my man.
All right. I got to tell you, one of the times we talked to you about the border, I didn't love our conversation because it seemed to me like you were blaming Trump for a lot of stuff. I don't care about Donald Trump anymore. He's gone. Joe Biden's done a terrible job on the border. How do you work with a president who's done a terrible job on the border? I know that governors can only do so much.
Right.
Okay. How do you get him on board with doing something about the border? Because I think this falls on you, Governor.
Yeah, no, I think that regardless of the party in Washington who has control, there's been decades of inaction on this issue. And I will say that I'm encouraged by recent announcements made on border control and immigration, the president's recent visit to El Paso and the border. And I'm encouraged by that. I have a call with Homeland Security Secretary when I leave here. And I've invited him to the border in Arizona as well. I think what I'm hearing from community leaders in those border communities is that they don't feel heard by Washington, and that this continued neglect and ignoring them it's a problem. And so as governor, I think it's my responsibility to continue to advocate for our needs. So regardless of if I agree with the president's approach or not, whether it's the president of my party or not, I have to be an advocate. And I think approach matters. I think when the approach is focused on how do we find real solutions versus I'm going to do this political stunt, like put up a shipping container wall that has now cost Arizonans $200 million and is being taken down, that doesn't solve the problem. And how can we utilize those resources that are really going to provide meaningful relief in those communities that are bearing the brunt of this inaction from Washington?
Yeah, look, I look at the containers and I say to myself, $200 million. So that sounds like quite somebody got paid because that's government, as we all know. But nobody feels like they're heard out here. And the frustration level from Texas to here, I mean, California and Chris Newsom, he doesn't care. Yeah, everybody can come here. But everybody has a right to be frustrated. And they didn't hear us. And while they were political stunts, they did get people talking in D.C., which nobody else was doing.
Yeah, no, I think that we're starting to see the result of that. I think the president's action and starting to acknowledge that we need some real solutions for both border security and immigration reform is encouraging.
So we've got a homeless problem.
Yeah.
Some of it is people who are unhoused and they need a hand up. A lot of it, There's got mental health issues. We've got drug issues.
Can I read the stat again?
Yeah, it's insane. Was it less than 1%?
Yeah. Homelessness rose by less than 1% from 2020 to 2022 nationwide. During the same time frame in Arizona, it's increased 23%.
We don't want to become San Francisco,
Right.
Seattle, Los Angeles. How do we avoid doing that? Because that's the fear. I was born and raised in California. It isn't the place I recognize. And the fear is that we could become that. How do we help people get to the shelters and the things that they need and the help they need without telling everybody, well, you're just going to have to deal with them on the streets?
Right. So I'm a social worker. So I've dealt with this issue throughout my career. My first job out of college was working with homeless youth here in Phoenix. It is an incredibly complex issue, and the majority of people who are unhoused for a long time have been dealing with chronic and multiple issues, mental health, substance abuse. And the fact is we don't have enough services, or we don't have services that are meeting their needs. And oftentimes when you have someone who's homeless and you say, go get these services and then we'll provide you shelter, they can't do that. It's just not, they're not equipped to do that. And providing that safety, that immediate safety of shelter can go a long way to helping them get to a place where they're stable and then they can access services. We're also seeing inflation in Arizona is largely driven by skyrocketing rents in Phoenix, Tucson, and Mesa, but everywhere. Those are the three biggest areas that it's happening. And that's also increasing homelessness right now. People are being priced out of housing and they have nowhere else to go. We're seeing a significant increase in seniors on fixed incomes who can't afford increased rents. And we have to build more housing. That's the answer to it's supply and demand. We have to build more housing. And so I issued an executive order in the first week in office where we're going to reestablish the Interagency Council on housing and homelessness to help look long-term at how we can address these needs. But then also my budget will invest $150 million in the Housing Trust Fund, which is directly dedicated to affordable housing. But then we need to get the red tape out of the way so that we can build the projects that are in the pipeline that will absolutely help alleviate some of this issue.
I love getting the red tape out of the way because a lot of times, you do something today and you pass it, and then 4 years from now, they're still arguing about it.
Governor Katie Hobbs is joining us in studio. Let me bounce back to the border real fast.
Yeah.
What do you say to the people who are listening right now and they're saying, well, she's a Democrat. She doesn't care about the border. A Republican would do a better job on the border. What do you say to those people?
I absolutely care about the border, and I absolutely care about what we can do to provide real solutions to the issues that Arizona is facing. And as a border state, we bear the brunt much more than a state that's not on the border. And I'm going to advocate for our needs in Washington, and I'm going to put resources where they can be most effective here in Arizona.
So, Republicans listening out there, you've got the people that are, the QAnons, it was stolen, the Kerry Lake fans, whatever. But there's a lot of Republicans, a lot of libertarians, a lot of people out there who maybe didn't vote for you. What do you say to them to say, all right, you know what? Give me a chance. We're going to find common ground, a lot of things, not everything. How do you win those people over?
Look, I'm the governor of Arizona, and I recognize that, and I want to be a governor for all Arizonans, whether or not they voted for me. I know that the issues we're facing are not Democrat or Republican issues. They're Arizona issues, and we have to come together to solve them. My door is going to be open no matter if I agree with someone or not, if we can work on an issue and come up with a solution.
1 year from now, what's the one thing you want to get done?
Well, I hope that we're able to pass a budget and that the government doesn't shut down.
Yeah.
But that's, and I don't mean to laugh about that because it would be a really bad thing if that happened. But it's one of the things that kept me up at night during the campaign and after the election is how far is an extreme majority going to go to create failure when we really need to be working together to move our state forward.
All right. Governor Katie Hobbs, first trek into the KTAR studios on the Gaydos and Chad show. Thanks for taking some time out and answering some questions, and we hope to talk to you soon again.
Thank you so much.